Thank you, and hello, Joburg. So firstly, thank you, Brandon, for the presentation. It was incredibly insightful, entertaining, and educating. And if my imposter syndrome wasn't well alive before that, it is very much now. For me, this is a very personal moment as well. I moved away from South Africa in COVID in 2020. We moved to Europe. And just in the midst of the pandemic and lockdown with a repatriation flight. And since February this year, we are back in Cape Town, so we've decided to relocate back. So this is the first time after COVID that I'm back in the trade in person. So for me, it's like having lived in a time capsule since. And so I read here a story of reinvention and success. So for me, today, more than success, which is, I think it needs a whole conference just to define that word. I'd like to talk about our startup and how resilience, I suppose, shaped it, which is very much, I think, a term that is perfect for this industry and for this country. For me, winemakers are probably the most resilient human beings I know, and South Africans similarly. So Port2Port, very interestingly, so was born out of the branch of an ad agency that I had founded in 2010 after I arrived in South Africa. I'm Italian, as you can see, as you can hear from my accent. We're a technology firm first. We were building applications and a lot of boring stuff online, and eventually in 2012 we started looking at the wine industry, and we started working in that industry. And soon enough, I met my wife, and I also met my first wine client, and fell in love with the people and with the product and with everything that it represented. It was something way more inspiring than fashion, which was where I was working before. And so, after a couple of years, I realized that the retail space, especially online in South Africa, was quite particular compared to the rest of the world. There were a few players. I think at the time already the best one in the market was Wine Cellar, that had released, I think we have a few representatives here, and which had released the brand new website. My wife and I were attending Young Guns, and I think that's when they announced it. And apart from them, no one really was doing a good job in the space. There was Cybercellar, there was WineWeb, I don't know if you remember it, and very much what they were doing was a bottle store online. So there were SKUs, most stores were not vintage specific, there was very little information, and just going back to Brandon's terms, there was no stories. And so in 2014, what we thought to do was, okay, why don't we have now this relationship with all these winemakers, thanks to our agency, why don't we start one by one telling them, put aside your best vintages, we put them on a website, and we design it beautifully, we do mixed cases, very much like Lerato was telling after COVID, and one by one we'll just try and engage with customers. So the idea was there to take what I knew from wine retail, which back in Italy, we are at every corner of the street there is a wine shop with a person that for generations sells wine, tells the stories. Now I come to South Africa, and also in the brick and mortar space, apart from perhaps Caroline's at the time I'm talking, there was ultra liquor and there was supermarkets. So there was no story, there was no personal relationship. And so we tried to say, okay, let's bridge that gap with the online channel and try and get straight into the inbox of people and convey the story of the winemakers. And so at the end of January 2015, we launched our website. And it was all very pretty, looks very old now, but we said, okay, every little bottle shot, everything needs to be vintage specific, ratings need to be on there, tasting notes need to curate it in the finest details. And so then we said, okay, we're about to launch, we're about to go live, what to expect? We had no idea. So we were completely new to this. And we said, probably the moment we switch this thing on, we will be flooded with orders. and there is nothing out there, so we need to come prepared, because how are we going to fulfill this? So we took a small warehouse in Stellenbosch, and we bought in the wines that we were packaging, and we said, okay, let's just prepare these cases, because we're not going to have time to dispatch. And that's what we did. We, myself and my co-founder, we sat there and we made these mixed cases. We wrote the tasting notes. We packaged it. It was all beautiful. And we did these pallets. And we said, will it be enough? And I said, okay. Anyways, we don't know. We switched it on. We got in, and then nothing. It's just zero. So okay, all right. So that was. And at the day 1, day 2, nothing. I said, we'll start questioning it. And then, okay, finally, day 3. Nothing. It's okay. So maybe, and then you say, okay, is it working? Is it online? Call my mom, call my wife, just check on your phone. Maybe there's no internet in the country, I don't know. So, and then, okay, so finally, day 5, I called one of my best friends and said, please place an order, because, I don't know what to do. And so my friend Devin, you can see here, says, I think he had a big discount as well. I don't know. He placed this order, which I go straight and package. Okay, so just fast forward a couple of years. I think shortly after our own warehouse, we were very kindly hosted by Wine Cellar to do our fulfillment. And I think up until not long time ago, we still had some of those mixed cases sitting there. But despite that, it was a lot of work. We built something from scratch. We did zero market research. We had no idea. It was all driven by a feeling, I suppose. Passion, instinct, magic, something. It was the curiosity of when you are, how old was I? 30. So then, we did a lot of work in a very small team. And then what did we realize is that, okay, where is this going to take us? Because we had, I think, 100 wines at the time on the site, very tiny. And we said, we want to scale it. I was 30. I was still extremely ambitious. Not that I'm not now, but now I'm more realistic. At the time I wasn't. And I said, this is unsustainable. I can't compete with, not even with Wine Cellar, with the selection they have. I simply said, I thought I'm putting down a smart model, which I explain you now, but the reason was not because I'm particularly smart, it was just out of necessity. I didn't have the money to buy in 3,000 SKUs of different wines, or how many there are, to give the customer and the consumer the choice. And so I said, okay, how do I do it? And so I looked at other industries, which is always, I think, the best way to get inspired is just to look at what other industries do in other parts of the world. And that's where the marketplace idea came very, very quickly. And I said, we cannot hold stock, we cannot afford it. And also because in the same fashion where you say that only 5% of the wine produces 80% of revenue, it's the same thing when you buy in. So unless you're very, very clever to buy in, but if you want selection, you're going to sit on stock. You're going to sit on a lot of stock that is unsold. And okay, if it's high-end wine that ages and you cellar it beautifully, great. But if it's Sauvignon Blanc or it's some rosé, you're not going to sit there for 5 years necessarily in most cases. So what are you going to do? Then you're going to have to start discounting and a lot of sales and stuff like that. And that's a vicious cycle. And that is what I wanted to avoid, because the intention was, let's stay ultra premium and never discount, because we want to give the producer a platform where the brand value stays at the top. And so the marketplace idea came about. We had a technology, or we had the idea to build a technology, and it was very simple. Instead of us cellaring, instead of us warehousing, we're going to do a dropship model where we show real-time stock of the producer. We started with producer and microfridgen, funny enough, and reciprocal, so importers. And we list their inventory. We obviously curate all the marketing, the bottle shot, the tasting notes, everything we do anyway. And if it sells, we have a back-end system which will pick it up from, let's say, reciprocal and send it to the customer. Idea was great. Obviously, it took a little bit of, it was challenging to build it. Firstly, we had to create trust with the consumer. And that trust you can only create if you have transparency online. And understand that when I arrived in South Africa and played in this retail space, the first thing I noticed is the consumer was, because things have changed, was used to a very low level of service. I remember phone calls when we perhaps were, at the beginning especially, a little bit late to answer a query. The first phone call arrived and said, "Are you a scam? Do you even exist?" Like, it was like, oh, whoa, just give me a second. And that is true. So there is, and that happened again in COVID, by the way, so I'll get to that. But, so we had to build an infrastructure which was transparent and was showing at any stage, where the shipment was, the state of the order, customer service had to be on top of it. So there is a lot of moving part. And which we've done then. So in 2016, so a year after founding, we said we need to change this thing, we need to scale it. And then in 2021, so basically, we got from 100 wines on stock, okay, just forget about this, to 4,500 wines and spirits in stock, available to ship, and from, I don't know how many countries there are there, but any country you can imagine. I'll get to spirits later. But this was amazing. So, like Vivino once said, so Heinrich Zacharias, the founder, the dream was to build a platform which can offer infinite stock. And that was really one of the ambitions I had. Not worry about the supply, not worry about the warehousing, not worry about inventory, but focus on the presentation, on the marketing, on the story, and on conveying that, and allocate the resources there. So we could scale a business with a very small team. Up until this day, we are only 8 people. So this is for me, has been remarkable. And then again, what is it? An obsession for customer service, an obsession for the customer. Like every single customer, since my best friend, Devin, who shopped at day 8, every single customer was golden. And that's why that was the imperative. That was paramount. Because customer acquisition is bloody expensive, especially online. Because you compete with the take-a-lots on certain SKUs. Now, if you go and Google anything, any variety, any wine, Google Merlot's Rubicon, you will have Babylon Store with their products. It's unbelievable. So whoever has the money wins that game. Again, one needs to be smart. And so your returning customer is golden. Obviously, you can't rely only on that. But it is 3 times more valuable. That's why build the relationships, build loyalty, and keep on conveying that story. It's way more important than acquiring a customer, paying a lot of money for it, and then disappointing on service. Because at the end, the product is not in our hands. The product is great. We know that. We are a great producing country. It's about the service. So we are not selling goods, we're selling service. Back to Brandon's presentation. So things have gone steadily, going upwards, and it's been great, and it's been really a great story. Understanding also that our model is a little bit different, and that's also something I need to explain, to a normal retailer. So we don't buy stock and sell it. So what we do is we take a commission, which is about 20% on the transaction. Okay. So that's all we do. So our fees are very transparent, and our margins are relatively low. So as you can understand. So it is a volume game. And at the top end, it's very difficult to play in volume. So it is a long and steady kind of journey. Not steady, wrong word. It's actually like this, I'll show you. But it is a long journey. We've been a startup for the last 10 years. And going. So last bit on technology. So at one stage, because of all these moving parts, when we launched first, we used an open source, which means like a ready available framework. My wife is telling me I'm halfway through, so I'm going to speed up. Which was cheap and was easy to set up and so on, and we did. But very quickly we outgrew it. The marketplace grew. We had about 200 vendors, which means 200 different entities selling wine, whether a winery, a retail store, and even we had competitors selling on Port2Port. We still have. Wine Cellar sells on Port2Port. Great Domains sells on Port2Port. The idea was that we were one platform for everyone. And we don't hide the name. It's their name. We show the logo. We tell the story. So it's about bringing everything together. During COVID, we started having restaurants selling to consumer. Element House is still a a vendor on Port2Port. You can buy vintage champagne or vintage South African wines, stored and sell it at Element House directly, and have it delivered to your door. So we built everything custom because we are a tech company first. We started rebuilding this thing from scratch, drawing the architecture, because we wanted to build the platform of the future. And so we did. So long time it took. And on 12th March 2020, we went live with this brand new platform, which is daunting. It's really daunting. What you see, obviously, you know, checkout and things, that's what you see. But what's in the back is actually insane. And I understand probably 5% of it. But just being in the midst of it was really, really daunting. But finally, we made it. We made it. It went live. And then COVID hit, I think 2 weeks later, something. So we had the load shedding, and we got robbed in the office. All our computers went, and then COVID arrived, and it was like, oh my gosh, what's happening here? And then COVID wasn't enough. We had this as well. I was like, are you serious? I was like, I really spent sleepless nights to do this thing, and it's already been tough. And now you tell me I can't do the job I'm supposed to do. So I mean, what's going to happen now? And obviously, everyone in the room knows this. I mean, restaurants, wineries, everyone got affected really heavily. So before I get there, you know, at the beginning we thought everything was lost. You know, you all know. I don't have to tell you. I mean, we knew how we felt, especially on the first ban. We didn't know how long it would take, and we thought, okay, how do we get out of this? So we tried two different things. So firstly, we started selling futures. I think all the retailers did. And we said, you know, we're going to do this big bulk kind of packages of 12, 18, 24 wines. We're going to give you, for the first time since we founded, a discount, which was kind of agreed with the producer or the vendor. We're going to sell you the wine. We're going to take your money, not us, because we pass it along. So just so you know, that's how we operate. And you're going to receive the wine maybe one day. So that was kind of the promise. And we thought, no, this will never work. I mean, who does that? I mean, meanwhile, it was incredible. It boomed. Obviously, people were bored, they were home, just said, okay, maybe by acting, they think it would end earlier. And we had, obviously, immediately, like everyone else, especially in Europe, the most insane year of sales. But for the first time in history, we arrived to a point towards, I think, 3 weeks in of the first ban where I said, okay, this is getting a little bit many orders. When this thing eventually lifts, you know, how I'm going to do this? So I started kind of changing my attitude and said, okay, let's hope no more orders. And they were still coming in and coming in. I said, no, enough. I said, let's close this site. I don't know. And this is what happened, really. It was very difficult because remember our model, so we're not centralized. We were not sitting on that stock. We were trusting that our vendors had that stock available, literally, and hadn't promised it in the meantime to someone else. So it was a complete shit show. So this first day this thing opens, we had no warehouse, remember? So we were, by the time we were not even with wine cellar anymore. We had no wine ourselves. We had nothing. So we rented another warehouse, and we said, okay, how are we going to organize this? And we then brought everything in, you know, everything in, first, second. And that was the first problem, because the couriers were all completely overloaded. They weren't helping. It was a disaster. They, you know, they were telling you they deliver tomorrow, and they deliver the week after. And then we were centralizing it in order to consolidate it before we send it on to the customers. So we had two different steps where the courier was being a pain. Second problem is if you had ordered on the last day before the ban lifted, you thought that you were entitled kind of to receive your stuff as quickly as the person that ordered 4 weeks prior. That didn't happen. And then last problem, is people were incredibly frustrated. I think I spoke to my analyst about it at the time, and he said, you know, this situation brought the worst out of people. And we have witnessed things and what customers told us and the way they were speaking to us on the phone. I mean, everyone here, the retailers know it. It was insane. My wife and I, we moved to Montague in isolation just to be on the phone and try and kind of salvage this. I was scared of people at the door. And anyways, we got to the warehouse, all of us, my wife was pregnant, she got her hands dirty as well. We packed 7,000 plus shipments in 5 days, which was the first kind of feat. And then, obviously, never kind of it took ages to get to the customers. I'm not going to tell you more about that. But eventually, it took, again, going back to step one by one, customers, speak to them, manage expectations, advance the process, preempt the problem. Don't have them come to you with the problem. Like, tell them, okay, there is going to be a problem. It's going to be late. So, but we're going to tell you before it's late. And that was kind of the attitude we had. We were focusing all our efforts in maintaining those relationships and telling and explaining it. And I must say, it was incredibly taxing. Psychologically, it was really tough because you say, this is a business. I'm doing my job. I mean, we're talking about wine. So you can't kind of insult me on the phone. It's like, relax. Like, I understand it. I understand I promised you something. I understand you paid for something. But it's just the attitude. And I must say, 95% of people were understanding. 5% were awful. But one thing I learned in marketing or in customer service is that you don't focus on those 5%. Those 5% is, you're not going to recoup them. The ones that give you 4 stars, you're going to focus on to give you 5 stars. The one that give you 1 stars, forget about them. Tell them, I'm sorry, I'm going to give you your money back. That's it. Don't count on them coming back. You'll be surprised how many come back. So it took some time, and then we got back on track, and we learned so much stuff. And the biggest thing we learned, again, was to be more transparent, to be more closer to the customer, especially because of our model. We had to tell them in real time where things were. And our solution, because we were only 8 people, was build technology to do that. And that's what we did. COVID finished, chapter done, thank God. And now some good news. So after all of this, we survived and we matured and we prepared our business for the next step of growth. And in 2024, as you can see from the little man, we married. We got married. And we sat down in Johannesburg because we obviously the company was founded in Cape Town. And we joined forces with Norman Goodfellas. And that was a match made in heaven, introduced by Michael Friedgen, funny enough, who's always kind of also a recurring person in my life. And we realized, okay, we're ready now to power up. So what does that mean for us, powering up? And it meant, firstly, like Brandon said, go Pan-African, go abroad, which means go to Joburg and speak to that market. Understand that market. Because obviously we were delivering to Joburg. And obviously we were, having AdWords and Facebook ads in Joburg. But that's not the point. It's like understand the customer on the other side, understand how to sell, and understand their expectations. And the better way to do that is, marry someone that understands that already, has been doing that for 50, in Bali? 1971. 49 years. Okay. 19, okay. Anyways, 76. And so that's what we did. We joined a brand which was very strong in distribution, extremely strong in distribution, very strong in retail, so 8 retail stores nationwide, with a certain, it's not a bottle store. Norman Goodfellas has a different type of level. It's an ultra premium, and just knowledge and know-how. And on our side, we brought in technology, which is something that for Norman Goodfellas, the e-commerce side of things wasn't necessarily a focus. It was a consequence of COVID as well, like many. But we were just, perfectly complementary. So Jason and Bali, myself, we met. We laid out the kind of architecture of this partnership. And since then, it has been an incredible journey. The first one, which obviously is a bit off topic for today, but I just need to say, is that there is some cross-pollination between the ultra-premium wine consumer and, as Brandon said, we compete in the space with the other products. And so, might as well keep them on site, may as well, and have them buy your whiskeys, your tequilas, and your wine in the same place. And who better than Norman Goodfellas? So instantly we integrated our systems. They became a vendor, and overnight they sold, on Port2Port, they were listing 700 plus spirits from all over the world and 2,000 plus wines. That's how our catalog got to that size. Instantly available, with half of it available for delivery in main centers same day or next day. So, all of a sudden these services came in. And most importantly, which is not on the slide, the most exciting opportunity, and that's where Mbali and I are working on, is the beginning of the consumer journey, which is the retail stores. And that is something we now are working on to leverage much more, because customer acquisition, going back to the beginning, is very expensive. And if you have a store and you have a customer with high intent that walks in, that you can profile, that you can capture, that you start building a relationship and continue online, that is an asset, and that is an opportunity that is unbelievable. And that's where Mbali and I sat down and said, okay, now we need to build an omni-channel. So also another marketing word, but all it means is capturing it at some point and just keeping that relationship across all the sales channels. Okay, last bit. I'm good on time, no? Not bad. Well done. This one slide actually could last, hours. But I just want to explain you a little bit where we're going with developments and what my dreams are, because I'm still ambitious and I still dream. So first and foremost, what we saw in South Africa, and I think I read somewhere that yesterday that Checkers 6060 is the best quick commerce platform in the world for retail. It has been compared, it was a study in the US and everything, the efficiency, the structure, the everything unbelievable. And that also is what it's doing, is that we just, we are at the tail end of it, because consumers change attitude. So whilst the behavior change maybe in young people, as you mentioned, to drinking less but drinking better, or different category, they also want instant gratification. And we're educating them in the market with same-day delivery, 60-minute delivery, 30-minute delivery. I mean, everything needs to happen immediately. And yes, you can question, yes, but for the ultra-premium wine drinker, he might not need that, etc., because he's going to accelerate. It doesn't matter. Eventually, you need to offer it. Otherwise, you're lagging behind. So, little kind of anticipation. In 4 weeks' time, we're going to launch, together with NGF, a on-demand delivery app that will pick stock directly from our retail stores and deliver them within 60 minutes, chilled, in a catchment area of about 8 kilometers around the stores. So, yes, we are competing with Checkers 6060, but we're not, because Checkers 6060 has, a very limited range of SKUs that they sell, and we have them all. So if you want a special champagne, a special tequila for your party, that's how it's going to happen. AI, very, very briefly, because I had to put it in, because everyone talks about it. I am very passionate about it personally. Applications in our current environment are limited, but there are things that we are using and that are interesting. We stay true to the stories, so we don't want to craft anything synthetically. We stay true to our tasting notes, etc. They obviously come from the winemakers. But there are things where we use it already, and we've integrated it, for example, automatic recipes and food pairing suggestions. Why not? Who cares? I don't need a chef to tell me what to drink with a Cabernet. But so a recipe bot can tell me perfectly on a Merle's Rubicon page how to best pair this wine with. Other applications are coming in, especially in understanding data, especially in segmenting, and there where I talk about data driving smarter decisions. Customers have been growing, luckily. There are now numerous. We can't phone them up all individually. So we need to communicate with them via WhatsApp, broadcasts, via email, obviously, keep on being very strong, and via social media. But in order to be effective and allocate your resources cleverly, you need to be very personalized and so granular. And that's where data, together with AI potentially, is able to allow you to tailor those messages and be very granular. Pan-African footprint, I talked about Gauteng, obviously, but we are also looking at other African countries where we can potentially apply and extend our marketplace, because there are some very interesting developments. And we are hoping that this tariff crisis will also trigger and speed up negotiations within Africa to perhaps have a trade-free or, some sort of environments where we can have wine circulate without being prohibitive on the other side. Because it makes no sense to me that there is a flood of premium French wine in certain countries and we don't promote our own continental product. But where the good news is that I do, and Enrico perhaps has some information on that, I do think that continental tourism is growing strongly in the Cape as well. So more people from the continent visit the wineries. They love it. They understand that it's better to buy local than buying French, and then perhaps that's going to translate into sales. And yes, last but not least, new sales channels. As we said, with quick commerce, there are wine sellers very clever with auctions. Auctions is a very interesting market. We're looking at those, not in the same space, so different model, but it's one thing. We are a marketplace. We want to sell consumer to consumer. That's going to perhaps open up B2B opportunities. So there is a lot of things we're looking at. We're still 8 people on the one side, but obviously we have a big brother, NGF, which is helping us to speed things up. And that's me, I think. Thank you.